One of the biggest factors when it comes to a business being successful is their speed at being able to find and develop and validate a product or a service. And today, we're breaking down what's known as the MVP, the minimum viable product, and how you can find yours. Hey there, my name is Chris Graby, and I love investing in startups and teaching everyday investors how they can do it as well. Today, we're diving into all things MVP and minimal viable product. The MVP is basically the bare bones product or service that helps get a company up off the ground. Actually, it's the thing that helps you realize, do customers actually want to give me money for the problem that I'm solving? Now, the minimal viable product is the opposite of a final product or a finished product. Today, we know what Facebook is, or we know what Slack is, but those at one time were an MVP. Basically, you're getting just a few pieces of the big vision together to go, is this a thing that the market would actually want? So when I define the minimal viable product, it's basically what is the least amount of effort that we have to put in and produce to get it out to the market to see if people actually want what we have. And then at that point, when you start to gain traction, well, then you start to tack on and say, okay, let's turn this into more of a viable product versus a minimal viable product. You start adding services or different features to your software that ultimately get people down the line. So let's dive into a couple examples of a minimal viable product. Airbnb is a great one. We know what it is today. We all know and see the finished product of Airbnb, but they started with no money and wanted to build a business. So the founders of Airbnb used their own apartment to validate this idea of a peer-to-peer rental, or what we know now as short-term rentals. So they created a minimalist website, right? An MVP, published a few photos and some other details about their product and their property, and they found several paying guests that almost immediately started signing up. So that was a minimal viable product. It wasn't what we know today, but it got them up off the ground. Let's talk about Foursquare. Now, the location-based social network, Foursquare, started off with just one feature. Again, MVP, offering only check-ins and gamification rewards. That's how they started. Now, the Foursquare development team began adding recommendations, city guides, and other features until they had really validated the idea and had an eager and growing fan base, right? So this is an example. You start off with an MVP and you scale from there. Now, the last thing you need to think about, do you invest in a company that's operating inside of their MVP, their minimal viable product? Well, for me personally, the answer is always going to be no. There is still way too many unknowns about a company, and the company needs to do more than just have a minimally viable product. I want them to have a viable product, meaning they've gained enough traction, and now it's time to launch the better, bigger next version of their product. So, but that's for me. Look, you may be different, and I'm curious. I want to hear from you. Are you investing in a company that has a MVP business model and they haven't hit traction yet? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video on the world of equity crowdfunding, learning the ins and outs. I'm excited to tell you that I just wrote a brand new book called The Angel Advantage, and it shares everything I've learned over the years of startup investing. All you have to do is click the link down in the description, and you can go get your copy right now.